coaching. Hey, okay, so I'm Xeno. Some of you probably have heard of me before. Some of you have not. I'm an elite rowing coach. I started truly coaching in 2003, and I am the most successful high school rowing coach, sending rowers to the top collegiate rowing programs. If there is something that I can crown myself with, is that statement: is that all these rowers that I coach year round end up getting recruited to college and to a rowing program that required to have a really good ERG score. So, this being said, how did I ever get here? I'll just tell you, I was really lucky that I had really good coaches. Lucky that I had elite coaches, coaches that were awarded the Coach of the Year award by the International Rowing Federation. Without elite coaching, I would not have gotten recruited to the school I went to, Brown University. The year that I was recruited, I ended up winning the Crash B Indoor Rowing Championship, setting a new junior world record then. And what ended up helping me also, these elite coaches, it's the reason why I ended up going to 3 Olympics, winning a gold medal and a silver medal in the single sculls, staying undefeated with Brown University. So with Brown, we stayed undefeated. It was amazing. The coach who recruited me to Brown is no other than Steve Gladstone. And Steve is the current coach at Yale, and he is the most successful collegiate coach there is on the face of this planet. So he's the one who recruited me. So from one set of elite coaches, I went to Steve, who is his own elite coach. And that is who I am when it comes to my coaching, my elite coaching family tree. And when I was done competing at the Olympics, I ended up going into business and started coaching, but also started an indoor rowing studio, which was really interesting because I was teaching beginners, people who had no idea what rowing was like, how to use the rowing machine. So there's a whole bunch of vocabulary that I learned that I was not using. I was just hearing stuff when I was competing. But then as I was running my indoor rowing studio, I learned to really articulate what people needed to hear and how it should feel to have the right stroke, how you apply the power the right way. Okay. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm wonderfully married husband, 4 kids. None of them row. Doesn't mean that it has nothing to do with me coaching. They just found their own passion. So getting recruited. It's interesting. Club rowing and getting recruited are almost two separate things, because when you're in a club, in a larger club where team boats are the goal, you end up being part of a team. And the club wants to have the better results on the water, and they're not too concerned about each individual trying to get recruited to the different colleges of their dreams. It just is not necessarily their number one priority, and that is the case for probably 99% of the clubs. Is they want to, number one, be fast on the water, and then if there are ERG scores that are improving, they love to actually by default use the ERG scores to create the seating of the first boat and the second boat. And there is a whole bunch of issues with that alone that I will not get into, because it's about recruiting. It's not about how to make the boats go faster at the club. So getting recruited to college hinges on the fact that there's not that much time in a junior rower's career to make mistakes. You have to do the right things right away in order to get the right erg score to get recruited. So when you have rowers come in, new people come in as rowers into clubs, and I'm speaking to parents here as much as I speak to rowers. Parents need to understand that is the right technique has to be taught right from the get-go in order for these erg scores to get better and better. The problem is in clubs, there are always so many rowers per coach. And so if you're not the largest and the tallest person, you may fall through the cracks and the coach will not pay necessarily attention to some of the kids that actually could excel, but because they don't stand out or not loud enough or they're just too many rowers. If you are trying to coach a large team, I often say it's like herding cats, and the individual attention is not there. So when you start rowing, it really, really matters how well you understand what you're supposed to do technically, when you're supposed to do it. And oftentimes at the club, it's a rush to get people out on the water. And then they teach you how to row. And the thing that's interesting is there is a discontinuity between the technique on the water and the technique on the erg. People tend to row better on the water than they use the erg. The erg makes my retina burn. When I watch rowers, juniors row, I'm thinking, okay, but why aren't the fundamentals not being taught on the erg? And so you have a lack of efficiency on the erg that you may have on the water, partially on the water. And I'm giving you a little secret here. The secret is on the water, the blade in the water creates the handle height. Okay. On the erg, there's no blade attached to the handle, and therefore the handle height varies a lot. Okay. And I'll just keep it there. It's just important to understand that the erg is not a priority for clubs. Yet, when you want to get recruited, it's almost an individual sport. You go to a club, everyone wants to row bigger boats, 4s, 8s, as small as doubles, right? But the bigger the boats, the easier it is for the coaches to coach a whole bunch of people that are out there than to have them all in single sculls. Because that's important to understand as well, right? A club can only pay its coaches if the team is large. How do you coach a lot of people all at once? Well, you stick them into the largest boats possible and you make them go in one direction. So getting recruited, though, is a matter of an individual erg score, like an SAT of rowing. And I call the erg the SAT of rowing when it comes to getting recruited to college. And those are the two opposing forces: group rowing versus the individual who has to improve as fast as possible in order to get onto the recruiting radar for colleges. Now, what's interesting about that is overall, there are a lot of false positives when it comes to erg scores in clubs. And the false positives are that you have some people who will keep improving in their clubs pretty much no matter what the type of training is. And that gives the club coach, who's a well-meaning person, okay? Just want to make sure you all know that. The coaches are well-meaning. They offer their time, are not necessarily paid very well, and they're there. They're there. They have a huge responsibility to make sure that no one gets injured, etc. How they learned how to coach came from who coached them. So if they have some results that are getting better, let's say 9 out of the 10 rowers, or let's let's say 19 out of the 20 rowers don't PR, but one does. Often that then justifies how the coach coaches. Hey, he improved or she improved. If she's improving, then guys, just work harder. It's a mental thing. They often refer to getting mentally tougher in order to improve the ERG score. Yeah, you have to row more or do more hard pieces. It's kind of cryptic a little bit what they tell you. But the false positive is that as teenagers, we go to bed and the next day we could potentially wake up stronger. That's what's normal. And so you have individuals who get stronger outside of actually training. So if you have a stronger individual just because they're maturing in age and you have them do another 2K, the false positive is that they're improving the 2K. But if they were to train properly, then the 2K would improve so much faster. And that is how you can compare the improvement curve of my students versus club students, where in coming off of winter and going into spring, the ERG scores usually get worse. Partially because there's more rowing on the water, not enough time spent on the ERG, right? And then the conditioning on the water is not as good. And so ERG scores get worse in spring. And whereas mine, they keep progressing through spring. So there are no valleys of ERG scores getting worse. So it is important that the athletes understand that the coaches try their hardest. Coaches try their hardest to make people go faster. But because the coaches were taught from whoever taught them, they only have one set of skills. And these set of skills get justified if a handful or less than a handful of rowers improve their ERG score. Even if it was a false positive that I just explained, that everyone in their teenage years should get stronger in time, and then their ERG score will improve as well. That is the best case scenario. A worst case scenario is when people start plateauing. And that is something that is very, very, very common junior year into senior year. It's this 2K plateau where people stop improving at the club. And if there is an improvement, it's only by 1 or 2 seconds. And that is one of the most frustrating things for rowers, is because they show up every single day. They never miss a practice. And come the surprise 2K, which I hate, by the way. Let's not use the word hate. I have a really huge dislike for surprise 2Ks because, can you really get ready for the day of doing a 2K when you don't know you have one? But then, of course, the psychobabble that the coaches have is, well, if you don't know that you're having a 2K, you can't get nervous for it. So we'll pop that 2K like a party bomb on you the day of the 2K, no matter how little you slept the night before because of homework, or you didn't really hydrate well the day before or the day off because you didn't think it's going to matter that much. But all these things do matter. And if you do know when the 2K happens, you can start thinking, okay, maybe I should sleep a little bit better. Maybe I should learn how to cope with my nerves. What should I do to not be as stressed? All these things matter if you know when the 2K comes. Now, back to the well-meaning coach. The coach is well-meaning to pop the 2K as a surprise because he or she doesn't want the oarsman to be stressed, because that is how they dealt with it when they were rowers themselves, But there's so much more to getting people ready for for a test, you need to give the high school rower the possibility to organize their thoughts ahead of time in order to perform. And that is so similar to what school is. When you go to school, you know the teacher puts out an assignment 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. Now, some of the rowers or students will procrastinate and only start working the night before. But at least the option was given to the rower student to prepare the schoolwork or prepare the mental part to perform on that particular day for the 2K. So it goes back to, right? It goes back to how do you, or the do's and don'ts when you're in a club. Well, the communication is really important between the club and the club coach and the rower. It is fair if the rowers know what comes ahead, what type of workouts come ahead, because then the parents can organize the right meal or organize massage therapy in order to get ready for this time, or just make sure that there's less going on in order to keep the mental energy high when the day of the 2K comes. So I went through the club's priorities and getting recruiters in individual sport. I want to go back to the urgency. The first year in the club, you learn how to row. You may get a little bit bossed around. Second year, it's a mix between being a junior and the first year. You're still not the strongest person in the team. You're not in the A boat. All the attention is for the A boat. The B boat or the C boat or third varsity, they don't really get the right attention for the boat to stay on keel. So the quality of the workouts aren't as good. You can't take so many continuous strokes. So freshman year and sophomore year are almost wasted. Okay. Because the attention is not given to the detail and explain to the rowers why they have to do certain things to develop their endurance in order to really excel much faster than the last 4 months of their senior year. So freshman year and sophomore year, I don't like saying it, but they're almost wasted, or they are wasted when it comes to club rowing. When junior year, the problem with junior year is all of a sudden everything, it already mattered a lot when it came to grades in school. But junior year, you have to apply to college. You're thinking, oh my gosh, where is my 2K? Where is my 2K? I'm 15 seconds behind, or I'm 20 seconds behind. So when it comes to junior year, you really, really, really have to have your ducks in a row if year 1 and 2 was not constantly improving. And I love starting to coach people from freshman year all the way through to their senior year, because they're constantly getting faster. We have people in the 6'10s and as open weights for the men, 6'19 and 6'22 in that window for lightweights. When it comes to the time of getting recruited to college, and then for the women, breaking below 720 is very normal. Breaking below 730 for lightweight women as well. And so, but how does that work, right? How can you have such solid progress? Is when you take care of freshman year and sophomore year. Now, a lot of the angst that I hear about from parents is when I get calls their junior year. And so in junior year, SAT, ACT, final grades, applying to college, the students are getting bombarded. And there is a way to maximize that year without mentally having a breakdown. There's a way to do this. So, but if if in a club, freshman and sophomore year kind of resembles junior year, with a little bit more attention in the first boat because through the false positives, people finally made it into the second and first boat. By that time, you're just behind the 8 ball, right? Because you have ingrained technical flaws that you were able now to overpower on the erg, but it's not going to get you recruited to college. Okay. And that's one of the things that I'm going to go back to my list because I want to make sure I cover it all. And I want to get back to this, right? I'm not here to bash the college coaches. Oh, no. Well, I could bash them as well, but because you always wonder, right? Why do always the same college coaches win races? Why is that? Right? They don't have the very best rowers. There's so many good rowers. But why do the certain collegiate coaches always win? And they can point the finger and say, that coach, he gets the best recruits, blah, 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 blah. But look, listen, I'm not going to set fire to that house. Back to the club coaches. They're well-meaning. It's very important that this comes across clearly. But they don't know what they need to know. And that comes from who coached whom. My friend Tyler, he said to me, Xeno, when you talk to parents and rowers, but parents especially, you have to tell them who were your coaches, who were my coaches. These coaches influenced my way of coaching. It made sense physiologically, biologically, and physiologically, and psychologically. It made sense how to be able to peak at the right time and make your rowing dreams come true. Who teaches the student, and the student becomes a teacher. And remember this, right? If you have a good teacher in school, if you could wish that your favorite teacher in school were to be your rowing coach, what kind of a happy thought would you have? If there's a teacher in high school that makes the class interesting, that tells you the glass is half full, that explains to you why you have to do this in order to achieve that, and you think to yourself for a split second, wow, I wish that teacher were my rowing coach, you're answering exactly what you needed to know. Good coaches are good teachers. Good teachers don't teach through fear. Good teachers are empowered by the knowledge, by the intelligence of their students. Questions are welcome in a classroom. Yet oftentimes in club environments, when the rowers question the coach's methodology, the coach is not going to welcome it as well, because to a certain degree, their own understanding of coaching is slightly more cryptic, and they cannot describe it clearly to their students, rowers, why certain things are done. And it always comes down to, well, mental toughness, right? And look, if your erg score is not fast enough, I mean, what does that say about you? You're not going to make the first boat. They could do seat racing, right? But seat racing is too much of an effort. It's a lot easier to just throw people on the erg and say, that's it, and then make the boat like that. That's something I had to say about this. On underwater results. I'll go back to that, right? When you ask a collegiate coach what you need, they will say the ERG score, but then they will also talk about the underwater results. The problem is on underwater results, the only underwater results that matter is national championship, making the national team, and the cherry on top of the whipped cream is making it to the world championship as a junior. Okay, so those are the three. Now think about this. To be a champion at the national championship, I'll give you that. First three, gold, silver, bronze, national championship. That's not many seats. That's not many seats. Yeah, sure, you've got 8, but then very quickly, the number of people that actually win medals at the national championship is tiny, small. And the issue there is, if you're really good and you're good and fast on the erg, or decently fast, and your erg would actually be better than your what you achieved at the national championship, the national championship doesn't matter. The erg matters. The erg matters. So underwater results are hard to come by. So if the clubs say, yeah, we want to be fast on the water, and ergs don't float, and the erg doesn't feel like the boat, and it's the underwater results that matter, you have to realize that the results that you can obtain at the regatta at the national championship are very few that will matter for your recruiting. So again, it's a team sport, but when it comes to getting recruited into college, it's really an individual sport. Okay. Final point. The club has many, many athletes. So oftentimes there aren't enough ergs to accommodate everyone. So in wintertime, they rotate people from ergs to circuit training or ergs to running. And yet what's the closest to rowing is rowing the erg, RP3, Concept 2, you name it, right? But the problem is you end up having to shift people away from it because there are enough ergs. And then the people end up getting injured, not from rowing, but from running, from doing some weird lifting. Yes, deadlifts. If you think about it, that's not how the rowing stroke works. But I don't want to shock anyone there. But there are exercises that happen outside of the rowing stroke that get people injured. So it's not the rowing stroke that get people injured. It's everything else. And that is something that happens in the club environment. So my advice, okay, to finish this off, my advice is for you, parents and rowers, to understand that it comes down to the erg to get recruited to college. Nobody can take away your erg score. No one can take that away. How you improve the erg score, yes, there is a method to the madness. Absolutely, there is. Without getting injured, without overtraining, being able to do it while you're doing the club rows. You can get faster. There is a method for that. If you're passionate about rowing, there are certain coaching packages that, because the pricing is high, but there are different packages that go over time that are very affordable when you think about the scholarships that can be won for women's rowing. and how much 1 month of elite coaching can help an individual, a high school rower, learn to self coach. So when time is spent by themselves, they know what to see in the mirror or on the footage that they take of themselves, how to improve. That's how fast, when the right information is given, when I give information, my goal is that the individual learns how to self coach. It's not brain surgery how to get as fast as possible. People stay with me longer than just months and months at a time because I'm a positive pole. I when the rowers talk to me and we coach online, the goal is to have a big fat smile throughout this session and positive outlook, understanding that what we do builds, it keeps building. And it's not just mental. It's much easier to be mentally aggressive when you know that the body is ready to produce. Okay, software, hardware. Okay, so the software works much easier if the hardware is really, really fit. Um, so if you leave me messages, ask the questions. I will answer them in public. So don't leave me messages that would. I will not name names. Okay, if just direct message me, and that's going to be really good. So know that it's an individual sport. Rowing is an individual sport when it comes to college recruiting. It's an individual sport. All right. I wish you all a lovely, lovely evening. Peace on earth, and take care of each other. Be kind to one another. Know that your parents love you to pieces. And this is it for now. Bye. Bye, you guys. Bye. See ya.